What's up, my friends? Welcome to another episode of the Whole Health of Rob Carney podcast. And on this episode, we have our guest, Kevin Reed. So, Kevin is a brother, husband, locksmith, martial artist, and deep thinker.
Mhm.
So, some ways he may describe himself are with this because it may seem to people like that's a lot of hats to rest on one head. So, he recently just moved to Portland, Oregon, and he's currently in the process of finding a new rhythm. So he's been an enthusiastic locksmith for over 10 years and plies his trade with gratitude and satisfaction. So when he's not working, he trains and studies in the martial arts, primarily jiu-jitsu and tai chi. So he's trained actively in both for 10 and 6 years respectively. He's a locksmith by trade and a martial artist by night. Kevin seeks to understand himself through the application of both of these things. He believes that a deeper understanding of the oldest aspects of martial arts could usher in a new era of combat and health. Kevin, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, what's up, Rob? It's nice talking to you. It's good to see your face.
You as well. And for everybody listening, Kevin and I met at the Czech Institute at our holistic lifestyle coaching level 2 over 2 years ago. It's just kind of hard to believe that it was that long ago. And so, I'd love to just have you share with people. Obviously, you have a very unique story that I'm very excited for you to share with, and just love to hear what got you into the world of health and wellness and kind of what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, totally. I was would probably be. I would consider myself like a little bit of a late bloomer in terms of anything really relating to health or athletics or anything like that. I spent most of my childhood as a bookworm on the couch, or kind of clumsily, playing in the backyard type of a thing. It wasn't until I got quite a bit older, like late high school age, when I kind of started to realize that I was actually like a pretty big guy, and that I could actually, I took a weightlifting class in high school and was like, whoa, like muscles, I have them. Who knew? Right. Um, and then, yeah, I ended up, again, late bloomer. Uh, I didn't get into competitive combat sports until junior college. I actually went to junior college mostly just for the purpose of wrestling, because I felt like I missed out in high school. So um, once I had wrestled my 2 seasons and was no longer eligible, started looking for something else to fulfill that competitive drive that I'd found in myself, and jujitsu was kind of the way. I'd been interested in the UFC, Ultimate Fighter, that sort of thing since 2005, around when I graduated. So it seemed like a pretty natural thing to get into, and yeah, fell madly in love with that. Um, uh, yeah, and then I actually ended up meeting my wife through by referencing Tai Chi. There's a
Nice. I didn't
really
know
interesting
that.
book.
Cool.
Yeah. There's a really interesting book called, you might have read it. It's called The Art of Learning.
That's
Um,
on my list. I'm gonna prioritize that a little higher now that you say that.
it's an excellent book. It's so what the guy does. His name's escaping me right now. Um, It'll come to me eventually, but he basically relates. He's a chess prodigy, um, and then kind of as a child, and falls out of love with chess and looks also for another way to feel competitive, and goes into competitive Tai Chi, push hands, which a lot of people don't even know that Tai Chi has any competitive aspect to it at all. And he relates the two. He relates the Tai Chi and the chess throughout the book in really fascinating ways. And um, so I saw in my wife's dating profile, my now wife, that she was a Tai Chi practitioner. So I asked her if she had read that book, and she said no. And we went on a date. Obviously, now we're married. Uh, but I've been practicing Tai Chi with her since then, and that has really um, that was quite a rabbit hole that I'm still plummeting down head first. Yeah.
No, brother. Well, I remember at the Czech training, the push hands game became a pretty quick hit, and I've actually introduced that to a number of people back here in Boston since. And it's one of those games that I remember, like you had mentioned in your story, that finding that competitiveness, like for me, I'm a competitive person. So when I have a way that I can compete and not need to, like for me, I played lacrosse. That was kind of my big competition in swimming. Those are my two big sports in high school. So when I can just do something on the ground with no equipment and still have competition, still have fun, and no one's getting hurt, I was like, wow, this is one of the best games ever. And I remember, I was trying to dethrone you because you were the champion of this game who I think I beat you once. My goal is to beat you like twice in a row. It never ended up happening, but I'll be back for a rematch sometime soon. But would love to just kind of dive into what is push hands for people listening? Because I want more people to play this game because it's such a great game.
It is an amazing game, because there's no setup. When it's played properly, anybody can play with anybody else, and it's incredibly safe. It's essentially the way that I've come to think about it is that it's almost like a it's almost like a meta game of like all of the aspects of any sort of competition, but especially martial arts, right? Every game has aspects of the push pull and the twist counter twist and that sort of thing. Um, so push hands all happens in on a really small scale between two people. Essentially, the way the game goes is you stand in front of another person. Um, you make contact with your hands. Usually, it starts with your hand reaching out and touching their elbow, and their hand reaching out and touching your opposite elbow. So you've got equal contact with the other person. And then from there, it's simply a matter of off balancing the other person. Um, and it sounds really, really simple.
And it
And
is.
I, let me tell you the story of so I read the book The Art of Learning, and in it he talks about the competitive Tai Chi push hands, and I looked up a couple of videos and was wow, it sounds really cool the way he describes it. That's awesome. Um, so then I meet my wife, and a couple of dates in, it was like, oh, so Tai Chi, like, tell me, what do you do, push hands? And she was just pretty nonchalant, like, oh yeah, push hands. It's a normal thing. And at that time, I mean, she'd been training in Tai Chi for like 6 or 7 years at that point, and I later found out was doing like I don't even know, probably like 15 or 20 hours of push hands practice, like with friends and a teacher, like in the park
Wow.
for several of those years.
Wow.
So we went out to Ocean Beach in San Francisco for one of her friends' parties. And for people that don't know me, I'm 6'4". I'm relatively muscular, about 200 pounds, 205. My wife is relatively petite. She's about 5'2", um, you know, and I couldn't push her. I couldn't push her over. I couldn't push her over unless I just like gorilla manhandled her, right? Unless I was like really just like squeezing on her wrist and like kind of yanking on her. And it was blowing my mind. She was doing these, that was the main thing, is that everything that she was doing was small. She wasn't beating me with these big, flamboyant movements or the stuff that you see in the like the more art side of the martial arts, the wushu competitions and
Right.
that sort of thing. It was all very subtle. It was all the slightest redirection of movement and intention, and just the way that she could read what I was doing before I did it. It just blew my mind. Um, and it's like, okay, sold. So signed, sealed, delivered. Like, teach me more. Show me what you know. Um,
So what are the rules of push hands? Because that is something that, again, kind of basically, my understanding is you kind of sitting, like you said, standing in front of people. When your foot leaves the ground, you lose. So what are the exact rules so someone can listen to this and go ahead and go play it outside in their backyard?
yeah. It's the rules are varied, but the easiest way to play, the way that I usually play, is you make contact. The targets for pushing with the hands is from like the chin, right, the neck down, and the hips up. So all of the contact is made, excuse me, with like hands, arms, shoulders, elbows, body, but there's no in what's called fixed step where you're both just standing in place. There's no like foot sweeps or any of that. Um, and then foot leaving the ground is a good is like a good metric. Um, but sometimes you can lose your balance without necessarily having a foot leave the ground, and that just ends up being like I think what you would call it, basically just being honest with yourself and the person you're playing with. Like sometimes you can get got, right, and you can maybe get the other person on the way, but if everyone's being honest,
Right.
everyone knows who actually got it and who didn't, who got pushed, who's the pusher and the pushy.
And so basically, it's not striking. It's, it's pushing. It's more gentle movements. That's something that I like as well. Is like you said, it doesn't matter how big you are, it doesn't matter how strong you are. You can play this with anybody. And I remember I was playing with, a lot of kids a lot younger than me. Like it's just like it doesn't matter because a lot of people that are actually shorter sometimes have the advantage. They got that low center of gravity. So it's like everyone, and we as the tall people have our reach. So there's pros and cons to all of it. And I think that's what's really fun is that it is this, kind of casual game. I was playing on the beach a lot, just like wanted to just get some movement in. And I think it's a really great movement. And so you want to add on to that there?
Yeah, I was just going to say the nice thing about it is that it, the rules are so restrictive about what you can do that it really levels the playing field for everybody that's playing it, and that reduces like the barrier to entry for
Right.
it. I was lucky enough. Alyssa, excuse me, Alyssa's teacher, man, Chinese man named Zhao, who was lived here for a couple of years and moved back to China, came to visit a couple of years ago, and I was lucky enough to actually get like kind of a mini lesson with him. And I mean, the guy was like maybe 125 pounds soaking wet, like 5'6", and the kind of stuff that this guy was doing to me just like even blew away the experience that I had with Alyssa when we started dating. It was, I mean, positively incredible. Like the the way that this guy could read. There was one point, I mean, and when you know that it's happening, when you know that you're getting got, right? Like as it's happening,
Right.
I'm sure you've had that experience like in lacrosse or something like that, right? When you just feel it happening and you're going, oh my God, this guy's about to lose me. Like
Right.
he's about to ditch me just like that. I have on video somewhere where I'm playing push hands with this old small man, in his mid 50s, and right like a few seconds before he pushes me, his one of his fingers is resting on my elbow, and he just like brushes my elbow, like like the subtlest little movement, and just that little brush caused me to start moving my arm back, and I
Mm,
started like cramping in my shoulder, and I got stuck, and he just like
wow.
it was so weird. It was the weirdest thing, but I mean, just made me fall even more in love with it. Just leveled up what I thought, is like, oh, I thought I was getting close to some sort of plateau. I thought I knew something about this.
Right.
It's like, nope, nice try. So much more to learn. It's really exciting,
And
actually.
that's what I like too about games like that and just things in general is like when you come up against like of course when you are facing the same people all the time you start to learn their moves and like you said sometimes you hit the plateau but when you come up against someone who's fresh, someone you haven't faced before, someone who's maybe far superior in skill than you, it's like you're always, and no matter what it is, I'm always reminded like man, I got a lot to learn and that's exciting. And we can look at that in a way that's like, ah, shit, like I'm not as good and kind of get down ourselves. Always like, wow, I got a lot to learn from this person. And I think that's something that the martial arts really intrigues me is the idea that there's always going to be someone that can beat you. And maybe they can beat you just because they have one move. Maybe you're better 99% of the time, but they know one move that you don't know. And that's something that's always really drawn me in. Even, and again, I don't watch a whole lot of, UFC or any sort of martial arts on television, but when I do, and like I think of names like Conor McGregor and how he was, doing all this cool stuff, but some guy figured him out and he beat him. And that happens to just about everybody because no one's infallible at the end of the day. And that's what I really like about martial arts. And love just kind of have you expand upon your experience with martial arts and how that works into your daily life. Because obviously
Yeah,
you're a full-time locksmith. And how do you work in things like jiu-jitsu and tai chi and push-ins? How does this all work into your overall picture?
yeah. That's a great question. So I actually, one of the, let's see, let's backtrack to before all this other stuff going on. Um, I trained pretty heavily, at least, you know, 3, 4 times a week, including teaching a class for several years when I was living back in San Francisco. Um, and it was actually pretty difficult sometimes to balance. The
You're
school
talking
that I
about
lived at
training.
was
You're talking about jiu-jitsu training, correct?
about jujitsu training. Yes. It was a little difficult to balance with the work. Just so the gym that I worked or trained at was a little further away. And so it would result in me getting home kind of late and having to cook dinner and eat late and go to bed with a full stomach and all this kind of stuff. And it actually caused me I started building up like a lot of these nagging injuries, little stuff that had happened here and there over the course of my training. Had started to build up, and I was actually right before the pandemic started, I was actually ramping down on my practice, doing less jujitsu and more tai chi. Fewer days driving down the coast to go and train a hard jujitsu practice, and more days out in the park, barefoot in the grass, doing just some basic tai chi forms and that sort of thing. A little bit of push hands practice when I can convince my wife to give me a round or two. She doesn't like playing with me anymore because now I've learned enough that she doesn't get to just push me around all the time, which is nice. But
Tables have turned.
yeah, a little bit, not all the time. um, but yeah, I was kind of ramping things down and just teaching one night a week. And then the pandemic hit, and it was almost a blessing in disguise. It's given me a lot of time and space to like heal those injuries, right? Start focusing on building maybe like some healthier joints and stuff like that, rehabilitating a lot of stuff. Because once I got into jujitsu, my goal was just to be able to train until I died. Like, the day before I die, I'm going to be training. I'm going to be somewhere. I'm going to be on the mat. I'm going to have my gi on, and it's going to be a good time. Uh, it's just that important to me, and it's really made that much of an effect on my life. So um, the goal right now, especially now that I've moved to a new city, so I don't know where I'm going to train yet. I've still got my options open, but it's mostly going to be, training. Most of my training is going to be going into strength and mobility for, for joint health, for long-term health. It's like I need to support my body to be able to do jujitsu forever instead of doing jujitsu. You know, it's especially jujitsu, as beautiful as an art it is, as artistic and gentle as it can be, especially when you're dealing with higher level practitioners, it is still a martial art and it does damage your body. Period. Right? That's the end of the sentence. There's nothing you can do to get around that. That's just a fact of what it is. Which just means that you have even that much more responsibility to yourself if you want to have a lifetime practice to do those things and do the work ahead of time, put the money in the bank, right? So you can do it and it'll last.
So you mentioned there, how much it impacted your life. And I think that that's something that, whether it's any type of sport or martial art, a lot of times it's beyond just the physical side of things. So I'd love to just, what are the like the mental, psychological, spiritual sides of your martial arts practice, whether that is jujitsu or tai chi? Because I had a realization recently that we have a group out here called Ice and Iron in the Boston area. Basically, it's a day long retreat, basically, and I've really come to the realization that the ice bath for me isn't about the inflammation helping. It's not about the muscle recovery. It's about the spiritual experience of saying, "Hey, this is gonna suck." It's never really gets much easier, especially in a New England winter when it's like 20 degrees outside and it's snowing. So
Yeah.
it's usually in the summer. Sometimes it can be nice, but generally speaking, it's not an easy thing. It barely ever gets easier. It's always terrifying. I'm always making reasons why I don't want to show up. And I made the realization this is more of a spiritual experience. When I'm in there, I am some of the most present I've ever been. Any thoughts of anything else is gone. I'm just in that moment trying to stay freaking warm and breathing. So
Yeah.
there's so many different layers. And I think a lot of people say, oh, it's great for inflammation, like those things I just mentioned. I think people may look at something like a martial art as well. Oh, it's great for your cardio. It's great for, flexibility or all these type of things. But beyond the physical side, what have you found to be the biggest things for you with martial arts?
Oh boy. I mean, um, just it's hard to know where to start.
We got a big
I
rabbit
mean,
hole we're diving into now.
yeah, big time. I love it. For one, just composure in difficult situations. Um, I um, uh, Growing up, I was relatively anxious. Sometimes I would get picked on. Sometimes I was pretty shy and that sort of thing, and did not really have the tools to stand up for myself or to even stay composed with someone, getting in my face and that sort of thing. But when you've spent, you know, hundreds of hours with another individual person trying to hurt you, right? Hurt you, like not in the literal sense. We're not in an actual fight, but that's kind of the archetype of what they're trying to do, right? Um, Someone getting mad at you is not scary, right? There's not a lot of things can uh, that you can say to me that's going to frighten me, right? I've especially you get into a certain once you get to a certain level, the size of a person doesn't really make a big difference. Like I've had guys that are 285 pounds, but they've never done anything, and they're not scary to me, right? And they get handled
Yep.
properly, nicely, gently,
Right.
but handled
With love.
with love, lots of love. Um, the composure, a certain amount of pride,
Mm,
um, because it's not something that anybody else can do for you, right? Especially like in jujitsu, a lot of schools don't have like a formalized way of progressing through the belts, right? It goes very much on the feel that your instructor or your professor has of what your level is, because it's all based on actual application,
mm,
right? So they can tell, like I can tell when I roll with somebody, I know if they're a white belt or not. I know if they're a brown belt or a black belt. Like you can tell in the feel once you get to a certain point. And so when I when I earned my blue belt, it was after like I had recently broken up from a long term relationship, and I was living by myself independently for the first time. I was lonely, I was sad, and I was angry. And my instructor uh, awarded me my blue belt at, at a ceremony. And I cried right there on the mat because it was like something that I didn't need anybody else for. I was independent, I was on my own, I did it all by myself. I showed up to class, and it it's something I'll never forget. really, really important for who I am today.
I love it. Yeah, and I think that that's something that it shows. It shows that just looking at you and the time I spent with you, you're just living life, and it doesn't seem like you hold too much worry. And maybe that comes from your self confidence with martial arts. But when I remember being with you, and I was like, man, this guy he's just living. He's not like no fear in this guy. And it's something that, like you said, it's a feel. Like it's
Mhm.
just like being in your presence. I just remember feeling that, like, this guy's confident. Like, this guy knows his shit. He knows what he's doing. He's walking the walk. And so I think that's one thing that when I was thinking about, different podcast guests, and you were one of the first names that popped up recently, I was like, yeah, like, I want to talk to Kevin, because he's doing the thing, and he's doing it different than, a lot of the other people in our class. Like, a lot of people in the Czech classes, like myself included, I'm doing health practitioner type of work on a daily basis, where this is something that you are doing a quote unquote normal, or more normal job, we'll call it, than most people, but you're implementing all these things on the side and really blending it in such a nice way. And I think it's really inspiring to people who are working full-time jobs, which is a lot of people out there, that you don't have to be a full-time health practitioner to implement a lot of these things. And like you said, there may be some sacrifices. Maybe you're going to have to drive somewhere to find the right gym. Maybe you're going to have some late nights, but at the end of the day, practice like this, I don't think that you can really, put a value on them in terms of like a number value or like a whatever value. It's like they just change you as a human being. And I've had this experience very recently. The past week, my business has been extremely busy, and I've been going to bed and like sleeping like 5-6 hours a night, which is not something I ever normally do. Like, for me, I'm a 9 hour night guy. Like, I need my 9 hours. I'm a more,
Yeah.
more than average sleeper. But it reminded me, like, hey, this is a short term, not even a sacrifice, because I enjoy the work I'm doing, and it's an opportunity for me to make a trade-off. And it's like, well, do I want to just get some more sleep, or do I want to continue to grow my business? Well, there's the opportunity to grow that business. And so I
Mhm.
think that with the jujitsu or whatever someone's practice is, there's inherently going to be a sacrifice. You can't sit and watch TV and eat popcorn all day, or Pop Tarts, or whatever junk food people are eating, and do the jujitsu after work. Like, it will not fit. So I guess, from that perspective, how do you choose your priorities as someone who is working a full-time job? Like, how do you fit in the Tai Chi, the jujitsu, and all these other health practices while you're working, 40 plus hours a week?
Yeah, I mean, it's man, 4 doctors, 6 principals, right? Super, super basic check stuff. Um, and then the 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 number one caveat to all of those things is that uh, you know, moderation in all things, including moderation. So
Right.
I also take the time, and I'm I'm living life, and I'm only going to live this one life potentially. I don't
Maybe,
know. We
maybe,
maybe we'll save that conversation for
maybe.
another podcast.
Yeah.
Um, but like earlier today, just now when I got home, the wife said, "Oh, we're ordering out for Mexican. What do you want to eat tonight?" And you know what I ordered? I ordered a chimichanga. You know what a chimichanga is? It's a deep fried burrito. They take a whole burrito and they deep fry it, and it's delicious. And I'm not going to beat myself up for eating it. I'm not going to feel shame or guilt for eating it. It's going to be delicious. I might have a little bit of extra gas tomorrow, but I know it's coming and I'm okay with it. And I'll try and make sure that I do it, not in the office, so that the
Right.
other guys I work with don't have to be okay with it too. But when I'm not eating chimichangas and gassing people out, I'm drinking water. I'm drinking water. I try and put down 3 of these things a day. I drink it out of glass, right? Uh, Most of the time, I try to eat mainly whole foods. I cook big enough dinners that I have plenty of leftovers to take the next day for lunch. Um, I also try and get at least 9 hours of sleep. Um, yeah, and I mean the jujitsu and the tai chi stuff ends up a lot of times landing less in the doctor movement category and more in the doctor happy category,
Mhm.
right? Like the movement stuff is the stuff I'm doing in the garage, trying to pull on the rings and move the weights and stuff like that. That's my movement practice. That's what's but the Tai Chi, more like what we were saying earlier about the feeling that it gives me, right? The feeling of self-worth and the feelings of confidence and the feelings of uh, wholeness, especially. I mean, if you want to feel nice and whole, get your bare feet in some grass and do some Tai Chi. Set a timer with like a nice ring, right? Don't set a timer that's going to go when you're done. Set it to like some birds chirping or some bells or something like that for 20 minutes and just go out there and make your movements match your breath. Movements match breath. Like uh, Tai Chi is a very specific thing, but you can implement the principles of it without actually doing like a form or anything like that, right? You don't have to do something special. Barefoot, grass, sun, breathe and move in concert, and that's Dr. Happy for me a lot of the time, right? That gets me settled, gets me warm, gets me feeling good, and like you were saying, takes my mind to away, just away from the worries and the troubles and the issues.
And you know what I like there is you made it look so simple. You're like, well, I just come home, I'll make some dinner, make it a little extra for the next day, get some sleep, drink some water. And for whatever reason, these very simple things are not so common anymore. And we just have so many distractions. And I feel like when I observe myself and observe other people, it's say, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time to do this. And then we really take a step back. It's like, all right, where's this time actually going? Let me just check my phone for 5 minutes. Okay, yeah, that's it. All right. And 10 minutes later, oh yeah, let me just check. Okay, yeah. And it's just like this. It's like, oh, I only checked it for 5 minutes. Yeah, it's like, yeah, we checked it 5 times in an hour, 5 minutes. So that time really adds up pretty quickly. Or, oh, I'm just gonna watch one show, or whatever the little distractions we have are, that, like you said, it really can be extremely simple. We really don't have to overcomplicate it. And I think that, like you said, with the Tai Chi, those principles go beyond the movement. I think that's something that, meditation and mindfulness has really changed my life. I used to meditate almost religiously for a couple of years. And now I'm at the point that, it's a tool in my arsenal. I honestly don't use sit still, silent meditation all that often. For me, my meditation now kind of comes into my daily life, whether that is my workout, doing it without music, just
Mm.
quiet outside, moving and breathing, like you said, going for a walk, doing my work that I enjoy doing is a meditation of itself. It's presence, writing things. So I think that, like you said, once you start embarking on some of these practices, they really just shine and spill over to every other aspect of our lives. And like I said earlier, I think that your presence as a person, I definitely feel the martial arts side in you, just as that that whole energy that has enveloped even when you're not practicing the art. And so I think that's something that I want to share with people is that it's not always about just doing these practices all the time. It's how can you do these practices and use some of the themes and principles from that to bolster the other areas of your life. Because at the end of the day, I mean, ideally we're not working a job we hate, but if we are working a job we hate, but we're doing Tai Chi or meditation, some of these things outside, how can we incorporate those principles into our daily life, even if it just makes the day a little bit better? And then
Mhm.
maybe you making that a little bit better today makes someone else's day a little better. Then all of a sudden, what if 6 months from now the whole office environment is completely changed because you started meditating every day, and it becomes that ripple effect.
Yeah, that's actually a big part of um, kind of a big part of how I think about like the reasons that I'm not actually working as a health practitioner right now. I've had a couple of people tell me that I would be really good at it. I think I would be pretty good at it myself. But for one, I have a good job that I enjoy. For two, I'm scared to make that leap. That's a scary thing when I've already got a good thing going on. And for three, I think just being the example can be, is as much as I'm willing to do in that realm right now. I share what I'm doing when asked. People people have mentioned to me that I have good energy or that I'm standing a certain way, and they say, "Man, what's up with that?" And I say, I'm just hydrated as hell today. I had a bunch of water. I feel great. And they go, "Oh, really? Just water?" It's like, "Yeah, it's that easy." Like, man, when's the last time I drank water? And they kind of look around for a second, and I go, "Oh, so have some right now, maybe." Right? Just, I mean, as corny as it is, it's like the Gandhi thing, be the change you wish to see in the world. It's like, if I am going to do it, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to show it. I'm going to be it. Um, and if somewhere down the line it makes sense for me to enter into that realm and actually take on clients or create a program or something like that, I'll do it. But for right now, it's, you know, yeah, just trying to be the example.
I love it. And again, that's a vitally important role. And I honestly, I really applaud you for taking on that role because again, that's a realm that you're tapping into a different population. Because myself, I'm connected with a lot of different health practitioners and people that are open to receiving advice or things from health practitioners. But a lot of the people I would imagine you're coming in contact with maybe aren't as open, but you're planting those little seeds. And one of my buddies, he's in the construction asphalt company. I got a few people in that industry, which, as you may know, are not always the healthiest people. But when you're in there, drinking some extra water, packing some healthier lunches on the job scene, hey, what's that? People start asking questions. So sometimes, and not sometimes, all the time, we need people on every different avenue. And, if everyone was a doctor, we'd have no cars. If everybody was a mechanic, we wouldn't have very good health care. So we got to be spread all over the map. And that's why I think, again, one of the many reasons I wanted to chat with you is because it's a different perspective. And I think that perspective is incredibly important, incredibly valuable. So, with that being said, I just want to kind of dive into what are some things that people can easily implement into their daily life? Someone who's working a 9 to 5 job, what are some, you mentioned hydration. Obviously, that's an easy one. You mentioned Tai Chi, but like someone doing that on their lunch break, what would you recommend for someone who's saying, I want to get healthier, I work a 9 to 5 job, don't really know where to start, but need some help?
Yeah, I mean, one of the the two biggest things, right? Doctor diet, food and hydration, diet and hydration. As far as the water goes, just first thing, like when you get up in the morning, just pound a big old thing of water. Just just pound it. Get one of these, get something like 16 ounces, however much this is. I don't know how much that is, but get yourself a big glass of water, pound that thing first thing in the morning, every day. Even just that one thing, you will start to notice a difference. I guarantee it. Um, Cook enough dinner to have some for lunch the next day. That always helps. Um, as far as the Tai Chi, go on YouTube, look up something basic. Look up just a basic Tai Chi. It's hard to do Tai Chi wrong, right? If you seek out Tai Chi and you practice something, you're already on the right path, right? Don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed. Don't feel dumb. It doesn't matter. Just like we were saying earlier about how no matter how good you get, there's always someone that can beat you. No matter how terrible you are at Tai Chi, there's always someone who hasn't even started yet. So they're
Right.
doing worse than you. So don't worry about it, right? A lot of it is just the pressure to perform that we feel a lot of the time. Pressure off, pressure off. So, like, try and set yourself up to not be pressured. So maybe don't do it on your break at lunch because then you don't have a lot of time. So you gotta like run around and find somewhere to do it. And you don't want to do it in front of your coworkers because you don't feel good about it. They're gonna go, "What are you doing? That's weird." Right? So maybe Do it when you get home after work. Get home after work, take a shower, you feel clean, you feel refreshed, and then stand in your living room, step your feet about hips width apart, take a deep breath as you slowly lift your arms, right? Nice, relaxed wrists and elbows up and down. And just do 10 of them. Do it right before bed, even. Right before bed, you're already kind of slowing down for the day. Tai Chi is nice and slow, it's easy on the body. Yeah, you'll get a better night's sleep. You'll feel a little more energy when you wake up to drink your water. You'll look forward to it at the end of the day. Um, yeah, yeah.
Keep it simple. And that's what it comes down to. The simple things. And, I talk about all the time on the podcast and just everywhere is the 6 foundation principles, like you mentioned earlier: moving, thinking, breathing, nutrition, hydration, sleep. If you even just improve those each like 5%, you're going to see a phenomenally huge difference in your lifestyle. If you think 5% more positive thoughts, that's 5% also less negative thoughts. That's like a 10% margin. If you're eating 5% more positive foods, it's a 10% net gain. And I think that it's very easy to underestimate the power of a small change, because especially in the social media age, we're looking at, oh, this person got 6-pack abs overnight. It's like, well, first of all, no, they didn't. Second of all, even if they did, who cares? Let's focus on the long, sustainable approach, because at the end of the day, we can look at all this instant gratification, but that's not how most of life works. And it's not always about the outcome. A lot of it's about, for me, it's about the journey. Like the times that I look back, I was like, wow, that was really freaking hard. I probably grew a lot, and I definitely grew a lot. I learned a lot at the very least. So I think that going through the motions of these and getting uncomfortable, like you said, at first it may be like, oh man, is my wife going to judge me? Is she going to think I've lost it? Are my coworkers going to think I'm that weird hippie guy? I've been that weird hippie guy for a long time. So everybody listen, if I can be that weird hippie guy, you can too. So, and you can even start with just drinking some damn water. No one's going to call you anything for that. So keeping it simple. And that's really what it comes down to.
And I want to give like just a quick frame of reference too, just to make it make it very clear that I was not raised drinking water. I did not drink water as a child. I did not cook myself healthy meals as a child, and I definitely did not do any Tai Chi as a child. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't start moving my body around with any sort of like real purpose until I was 18 or 19 years old. I didn't start drinking water regularly until I was probably in my 20s. I was, a multiple soda a day when I was, so I'll tell you a quick little story. From when I was 14 until I was 19, I worked for my dad at a local hardware store. And every shift I would have a 15-minute break. During that 15-minute break, I would go and buy myself 1 can of soda and 4 full-size candy bars. 4. A Kit Kat, a Snickers, a Milky Way, and a Three Musketeers. And I would eat all of them in the remaining 10 minutes of my break. And I did that at least 3 times a week for at least 5 years. And that stuff is poison. It's pure poison, right? It's terrible for you. There's almost no redeeming anything in that. But once I found wrestling and I found jiu-jitsu, and I started realizing that something like a little extra water or a couple less candy bars or a couple less sodas to start improving my performance, ding, oh, light bulb goes off, right? Okay, I can, before it was like, I don't feel like making those changes. What am I going to make those changes for? I don't care. I feel fine. Here I am 10 years later, and I can tell you, I did not feel fine. I did not feel fine. I did not feel good. I was farting all the time. It smelled terrible. I would break out, it was bad. once I found something, a reason, right? A reason. Have to have a reason. You won't do anything.
That's a beautiful point. And it comes down to, a big thing like we talk about in the check system and just anything is purpose. You got to have a purpose. What are
Or-
you working towards? Yeah, the one love. What's the one
Yep.
love? Why are you doing this? Because, like you said, a lot of times if we don't have a purpose, one, we're not going to make the change we need to grow. And two, like you said after that, is a lot of times we don't realize that we're actually not in an optimized state because it's so normal. And especially in a current time where we are really kind of normalizing, oh yeah, 60+% of the people are overweight. That's just normal. People are just overweight, or people are unhealthy, or people have diabetes, or whatever. It's like, just because it's common doesn't mean that's normal. And that's a very big distinction. Like, if you are trying to be averagely healthy in America, you are severely unhealthy. Like, the idea of average health is terribly unhealthy. So I think recognizing that, as well as that, we need to be aware of, hey, just because this is how I feel doesn't mean it's normal. Like you said, I shouldn't be having acne on my face breaking out every day. I shouldn't be ripping gas that makes other people want to go run away and go for a shelter. Like, that's not normal. And just because it's normal to you doesn't mean that's something you have to deal with. Oh, I just have smelly gas. No, you don't. It's probably the foods you're eating or the toxins that you're consuming through maybe foods or breathing in or whatever. But at the end of the day, common does not mean normal. And I'm really glad you brought that point up, because I think it's so easy for people to say, oh, I've tried everything. It's like, oh, really? Have you? Have you tried everything? Because I think if you tried everything, you probably wouldn't be experiencing these symptoms. And a lot of times they're just trying the common things to do. And that's
Mm.
where things like Tai Chi, that's a little woo woo that the average person would say. It's a little outside the box. If you see someone kind of moving and breathing in the park, and if I saw that when I was in like high school, I'd be like, what the fuck? What is this person doing? What are they on? Are they a crazy hippie? Are they on acid? Yeah. What are they doing? But then, when you try some of these things and you feel a difference, it's like, wait a second, why is no one talking about this? Why is this not common? Why is
Yeah.
hydration not one of the most talked about topics in the world right now? Why is
Mm-hmm.
eating organic food not a big topic in the world right now? Why is air pollution, having healthy air not a topic in the world? Like, why are these things not a topic in the world? Because it's not a common solution. At the end of the day, if we look back at it, a lot of it's money driven, which again, we can't really blame it. In a capitalistic society, we have every right to do that, but we also have every right to educate ourselves and recognize, hey, just because, this way is the way doesn't mean it has to be our way. And we can change that, voting with our actions, voting with our dollar. And I think that's one thing, again, seeing you as your living example of. And that's what I appreciate all the people who are doing this type of work, is just walking the walk. So again, Kevin, I'm just super grateful that you've shared all this today, and would love to give you the opportunity to share any final messages you have with the people and where people can follow along with you and see all the cool stuff you're doing.
I have an Instagram. I think it's Kevin Philip Reed with one L in Philip. Um, I've posted a couple of things lately, but I'm not super active on it. I'm not super easy to find because I'm not out there selling my wares. But if you want to reach out to me, I am there. And if you're looking for a one-on-one coach, I might be willing to set you up. I'd consider it. I feel like if I'm ever getting into that kind of thing, I'm just going to go like old school kung fu master and tell them like, okay, go sit on my porch for 10 days in the rain, and then I'll think about letting you in my floors, right?
They gotta be on push hands 10 consecutive days. How about
Yeah, there you go. Um, yeah, but if find me on there. If you're ever in Portland, come and hang out. We'll do some Tai Chi in the park. That invitation stands for you and any of your listeners out there, Rob.
Awesome, Kevin. Well, thank you again for being here. Thank you for being you. And just really appreciate you, brother. So thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Much love, buddy.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Have the best day ever. Peace. Hey, friends. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Whole Health with Rob Carney podcast with our guest, Kevin Reed. So as you've seen, health doesn't really need to be that complicated. We drink some water, move our bodies, get some sleep, do some things that we like, we enjoy, be around people that are supportive to us, have good relationships, follow the 6 foundation principles, utilize the 4 doctors. Doesn't need to be anything too crazy. And so that's what is really, I have an immense amount of gratitude for all the people in my life that are really supporting me right now and the community that we are building. And I just want to ask you, what is your community like? Do you have people like Kevin and a lot of the other guests on my podcast who are sharing ways to improve your life? Or are you surrounding yourself with people that are creating drama? Maybe sucking away your energy, being an energy vampire, as they call it. And if you are in a situation that you say, hey, maybe my relationships, maybe my community, maybe the people I'm surrounding myself with, maybe they need to be leveled up. Well, I'd love to chat. And that's something that I could go into so many details of how grateful I am to have this community that we have within our Purium organization. And especially recently, as you're listening to this, probably about, the past few weeks have really just been absolutely monumental. Really just connecting with so many like-minded people that are focused on healing themselves, healing the planet, improving human health and wealth, and having fun doing it. This has been the most fun I've had in business in probably ever is these past few weeks, and it's only getting better. The squad is growing. We're all pushing each other to be better, and I am truly grateful. I'm grateful for you listening, especially if you've listened this far, and I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for now. I'm excited for the future. I'm grateful for the past. Life is just a perfect storm, whether it's ups and downs, lows and highs. Just like the ocean, there's low tide and high tide. So let's make the most of this. Have the best day ever. If you're interested in learning more about our community, please just shoot me a message. There's no obligation. See if it's a good fit for you. It's not a good fit for everybody. Definitely not. But if it is a good fit for you, if you're hungry, you're willing, and you're coachable, we'll take you to the top, baby. So have a beautiful day. Have the best day ever. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.